A lot of companies think they understand why they win and lose deals. But when you look closer, the reasons are often vague. Budget, timing, no decision, loss to competitor. And while those reasons may be directionally helpful, they rarely explain what actually happened. Was the issue really pricing, or was the value not built properly? Was it a product gap, or was the solution simply not positioned well enough? Was the competitor genuinely stronger, or did they enter the process earlier with a clearer story? Was the buyer not ready, or did the sales execution fail to create enough urgency? It is because of the ability to answer this specific question more precisely that I believe win-loss analysis become an incredibly valuable tool for an organization. However, it's important to clarify that when I refer to win-loss analysis, I'm not referring to a retrospective report that gets filed away. Rather, I refer to a practical way to understand why deals are won, lost, or delayed, and then use their insights to improve sales execution, messaging, product direction, competitive strategy, coaching, and broader go-to-market decisions. What I'll be discussing in this video is based on my full win-loss analysis guide and one-pager. They go much deeper into the definitions, the win-loss maturity model, the step-by-step process, and you'll find a clear win-loss analysis template too. I'll link them in full in the description below. Of course, we can't possibly cover everything here, so we'll be very focused on implementation aspects. Things like how do you actually apply win-loss analysis inside the real organization, especially when the data is imperfect, stakeholder buy-in is limited, and nobody has time to build a perfect program from scratch. If I were to boil win-loss analysis down to the simplest logic, it would be that you are trying to combine three types of evidence to capture, analyze, synthesize, and act on insights, most importantly. So first, what happened in the CRM? Second, what was said in sales conversation, which you can now analyze at scale with AI Sales Copilot or conversational intelligence tool, for example. And third, what buyers tell you directly to interviews or surveys. When those three sources start pointing in the same direction, you move from opinion to evidence, which is why and when win-loss analysis becomes a way to make better decisions across the revenue organization. So the biggest mistake I see with win-loss analysis is starting too broadly. Teams begin with a question like, why do we win and lose? If you start there, you end up pulling too much data, involving too many stakeholders, and producing a long list of findings that nobody knows how to act on. I made the mistake myself more times than I like to admit. And so the better starting point instead is a specific business questions. You want to begin with the decision the analysis needs to support. For example, why are we losing mid-market manufacturing deals to competitor X? Or why do outbound enterprise opportunities stall after discovery? Or which objections or concerns are actually costing us revenue in segment Y? This is why the first step in the full guide that I propose is align objectives and stakeholders. Before you pull data, before you create dashboards, before you interview buyers, you need to define what questions you are trying to answer. I recommend focusing on one slice of the business. It could be one competitor, one segment, one region, one sales motion, one deal size band, one stage where deals are slowing down or stalling, or one strategic question leadership already cares about. So instead of thinking, let's analyze all wins and losses, you should think, let's analyze close won and close lost outbound mid-market deals from the last 2 quarters where competitor X was involved. This way, you'll have a clear boundary to work with, and you also make stakeholder alignment much easier because you do not need everyone. You involve the people connected to that question. So once the scope is clear, you can use the maturity model that I propose in the guide as a diagnostic, which I think is a good practice. So the model moves from ad hoc guesswork to basic CRM tracking to project-based analysis to an integrated program, and then to continuous insight engine. Now, if your organization is at stage 1 or 2, you certainly don't want to try to build a full insight engine for the whole GTM organization immediately. Instead, you start with cleaner CRM fields, a narrow deal sample, and a small qualitative review. If you're already at stage 3 or 4, the next best step may be to formalize the cadence, ownership, the survey triggers for buyers and customers, the AI call analysis, or a shared insight dashboard. Avoid implementing everything at once and instead focus on moving one level up in the maturity while producing one insight still that the business can act on. So I like to have a very pragmatic mindset. One question, one deal slice, one useful output, one action to test. Now, if you were to ask me, so Federico, what's the smallest output we can produce if we are just getting started and don't have much resources? My answer would be a one-page win-loss insight brief. This is a simple working artifact that helps stakeholders see one meaningful pattern, understand why it matters, and agree on 1 or 2 actions. So a good one-page brief should include 6 things. First, the scope. What segment, time period, deal type, competitor, region, or motion do you analyze? Second, the headline pattern. What is the main thing you noticed? Third, supporting evidence. This might include CRM data, call signals, buyer quotes, survey responses, or example from specific deals. Fourth, the likely root cause. What do you think may be driving the pattern in the first place? Fifth, the recommended action. What should the business test or change as a result of this? And 6, the owner and next review point. Who owns the next step and when will you check whether anything changed at all to inform the next step? So let me make that more concrete. Imagine the scope is close loss mid-market outbound deals from the last 90 days. The headline pattern might be several losses appear to involve late-stage integration concerns, especially when IT joins the evaluation after the first demo. So the evidence might be CRM shows lower win rates when there is a competitor X listed, and also call analysis shows repeated mentions of Salesforce integration concerns. And 2 buyer interviews suggest that our integration narrative felt less clear than the competitor-specific one identified. The likely root cause might be the issue is likely that the reps are addressing integration confidence too late after technical stakeholders have already formed a perception. The recommended action could be something like create a short buyer-facing integration asset that can give technical buyers confidence. Update discovery prompts for technical stakeholders, add a manager inspection question to deal reviews, and the ownership, finally, could be product marketing enablement, create the asset and talk tracks, sales manager inspect behavior in deal reviews for 4 weeks. I would say this is enough. You don't need the perfect system to create value. The one-page brief turns the vague concern into a clear discussion. It gives leadership something to react on. It gives enablement something to activate. It gives managers something to inspect and coach on. And it gives product or marketing a clear view of whether the issue is product gaps, buyer perception, or simply something to do just with sales execution. So over time, this one-page brief can become part of a more mature quarterly win-loss review. But at the beginning, its value is the focus, preventing win-loss analysis from becoming a broad research project with no clear action path. Now, let's briefly talk about adapting this approach to win-loss analysis on your environment. First, it has to be said that regardless of everything, the core principle stays to use deal evidence to improve go-to-market decision. That's the ultimate goal. But of course, the implementation should change based on maturity, the resources you have available, the tools you have, and the stakeholder appetite overall. If you're in a low maturity environment, you want to keep it narrow and more manual. It's okay. You may not have clean CRM data, you may not have AI tooling, you may not have a strong stakeholder alignment yet, and that is fine. Start with 10 won deals and 10 lost deals. Choose one sales motion or segment. Use a basic CRM export. Add some rep notes. You can have discussions with reps or interviews. Review call recording if you have them. And then run a short internal review with sales managers. Your output can simply be a one-page insight brief, similar to what we discussed already. Your first goal is to prove that win-loss analysis can reveal something useful. If you are in a more modern, mature environment, the focus shifts from project to program. You probably have CRM data, call recording, and some RevOps or enablement support. The priority is to make the process repeatable in this case. That's why we talk about program. So you might define a quarterly review cadence, a standard deal sample, a basic survey or interview process, common tagging dimensions, a shared insight template so that can aid to the discussion, and a simple activation process. So the full step-by-step guide and process that I propose shows how you go from objective to data pool to tagging to pattern review to AI analysis to buyer feedback to synthesize to activation, which is the ultimate goal of the process. If you're in a mature environment, win-loss can become part of your GTM intelligence rhythm. At that point, it is not only a sales analysis exercise. You should feed product priorities, competitive strategy, messaging, enablement planning, manager coaching, and leadership reviews. Here you can invest time and energy into AI prompt libraries, in governed taxonomies, automated surveys, dashboard tied to outcomes, quarterly executive narratives, and ongoing insight backlog. But even in a mature environment, the danger is complexity. You can produce too much insight. The discipline is to instead prioritize the few findings that should actually change decision and have the most likelihood to make an impact on the business. So if you want to apply this in the next few days, for example, you don't start by analyzing deals right away. Start by running a 30-minute win-loss scoping conversation. Invite 2 or 3 people, one sales leader perhaps, or frontline managers, one RevOps or sales ops partner, and one person from enablement or product marketing. The aim of the session should be identifying one useful question worth investigating. You can structure the conversation around 5 specific areas. So first, where are we guessing right now? Ask each person to name one area where the business lacks clarity from their perspective. For example, we do not know why competitor X keeps winning. We do not know why enterprise deal stall after proposal. We don't know whether our pricing objection is real or badly handled. We do not know which verticals are generally a best fit. So the second, which question would be most valuable to answer first? So choose one based on business impact and feasibility. Third, what deal slice should we review? You want to define the sample. For instance, closed won and closed loss deals, last 2 quarters, mid-market segment, deals above 25K, or competitor X present or suspected. Fourth, what evidence do we already have? This might include CRM exports, call recording, conversational intelligence tool data, buyer surveys, rep notes, and manager observation. And fifth, what is the smallest output we will produce? Agree on one-page insight brief rather than a full report. After the meeting, send a simple follow-up message. Something like, we agreed to run a small win-loss review focused on closed mid-market deals from the last 2 quarters where competitor X was involved. The goal is to understand whether losses are driven by product gaps, pricing, messaging, sales process friction, or stakeholder dynamics. I'll pull an initial deal sample, review available CRM and call data, and come back with a 1-page insight brief covering the main pattern observed, evidence, likely root cause, and recommended next actions. That is enough to create forward movement because you're not asking the business to commit to a full program right from the start. You are creating a small operating habit. 1 business question, 1 focus deal slice, 1 useful output, 1 action to test. And this way the process becomes much more practical and easy for stakeholders to buy into and to digest. In conclusion, it's probably fair to say that win-loss analysis only creates value when it moves from explanation to action. It's about building a clearer evidence-based understanding of why buyers choose, reject, delay, or disengage, and then using that understanding to improve the way the business sells, positions, coaches, builds, and prioritize. You don't need a perfect system to start. Once again, you need 1 focused question, a small deal sample, a useful evidence base, and a clear path from insight to action. So the full guide and 1-pager linked below go deeper into the maturity model, the full step-by-step process, the AI analysis approach, the template structure, and examples you can adapt. Thank you for staying with me all the way through, and I hope you find it useful. I'll see you in the next video.